welcome to Flock Talk. Today we're going to be covering 5 basic emergencies that you might potentially encounter when dealing with birds. So the sort of emergencies I'm going to be covering today are pretty drastic ones. I'm going to be covering things like fires and earthquakes and what to do in these sorts of situations, because when it comes to birds, when they have incredibly delicate lungs, there are certain procedures that can be quite different than we might expect. Now we can hope that we never have to deal with any of these emergencies, but it is important that we know what to do, so if they do arise, we can react as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So the first emergency I'm going to go over is a fire. Now, when it comes to birds, a fire can be an extremely dangerous thing, especially if your birds are out and about, they're scared, they're going to be flapping all over the place. It's going to be hard to get them back into a cage, and when there's smoke filling the room, that's going to be really dangerous for their very sensitive lungs. So it's important that we don't actually use a travel cage to get them out of the house, but instead we use a pillowcase. So the reason why we're going to use a pillowcase instead of a cage is because you're going to be able to toss this over your bird if they're flying around, so they're going to be a lot easier to catch. And if you have a low thread count pillowcase, it's going to filter out some of that smoke while still allowing them to breathe somewhat cleaner air than just taking them in a bare cage straight out the door. Now obviously if your bird is already in a cage, just grab that thing and go. Don't bother wrestling them into this. If you have a cage cover, that'd be great. Anything that can sort of help create a barrier between the bird and the smoke in the room. So what you're going to do is you're just going to simply grab a pillowcase and stick your arm inside of it, and you're just going to easily grab your bird any way you can and pull that pillowcase inside out. Now obviously it's going to be scary for your bird, but what happens with this is it makes it so much easier to carry around, especially if you live in a household that has several birds. If you're needing to grab all of them and book it out, if you have different colored pillowcases, you can know exactly which bird is in which pillowcase. You can carry several birds in one hand while grabbing things you need for yourself and make it out that door as fast as possible. When a place is on fire is one of the most important things, is being able to be efficient and not being hectic and confused. And if you're chasing a bird around trying to crowd them into a cage, it's going to be so much harder to get there. With this, you can just easily toss it over the bird and grab them and pull the thing inside out. And it's so much easier, and it's a lot safer because, as I've said, the low thread count does allow them to still breathe while filtering out some of that smoke. So the next emergency I'm going to be going over is earthquakes. And now the procedure for this is pretty straightforward. You just want to make sure that you have a really good travel cage. Now what defines a good travel cage is something that's secure, something that your bird is not going to be able to unlock, and something that is small, because the whole point of it is that it's able to move easily and quickly and your bird isn't going to be bouncing all over the place. So the cage I've got for my birds, this thing here, and it's just a basic small cage that you can pick up at any pet store. It's usually marketed as Finch cages. And this one works for my guys because I know I can just clip the doors shut and they're not going to be able to get to it. If you have larger birds, I do recommend getting proper travel cages, especially since they're going to be a lot more secure. If anything were to bash and hit a regular cage, they bounce all over the place. Now the thing you'll notice about this cage is there aren't a ton of perches in it. There aren't any at this point in time, but there should be one in there. I'm just haven't put it in at this point. But you don't want your cage that's meant to be a travel cage to have way too many perches, because if you think about it, if you're putting your bird in your car and you're driving to get to a safe place, you don't want them being able to bounce all over the place and hit perches and fall. You only want them to have one place that they can feel secure, so they're not going to be hitting perches and potentially hurting themselves. One of the most important things when it comes to an earthquake, much like fire or any other crisis for that matter, is going to be efficiency. And one of the ways that you can make this more efficient is by practicing with where your cages are going to go. If you only have one bird, it's probably not that big of a deal because you just need to figure out where one cage is going to go. But if you live in a multi-bird household where you're going to have several cages that you're going to have to try and cram into one vehicle, you need to make sure that you know exactly how these cages are going to fit there, because some things can be like a game of Tetris. It's going to be pretty tricky trying to get everything to fit in there. So what you can do is practice ahead of time. Don't put your birds in the cages and shove them in there. Just play with the travel cages, figure out the best way to get things to fit, so when it comes to it, should this ever happen, you know exactly how things are going to go, you know the best way to make them fit, so that way again you can get yourself and your birds out of that place as soon as possible. So I hope that these provided some helpful tips that you can keep in the back of your head just in case these situations do arise. Obviously we don't ever really want these things to happen, but it is best just to kind of keep ourselves refreshed and understanding these things just in case they ever do happen. We want to do our best to be prepared. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all then. Bye!